Welcome to the Story and Critique Show. Fantasy, thriller, mystery, sci-fi, and so much more. With over 240 stories critiqued by myself as a cold read. This is a stream where I help writers in the community with improving their story, similar to an alpha reading, by doing a live reading and a live critique. So if you want feedback on your story, submit now. It's linked down in the YouTube description down below. And for those of you who don't know me, welcome. I'm Kauffman, daily writing streamer, fantasy nerd, and I'm on a mission to help you, the writers of the world, with the entire writing process, because I'm that weirdo who loves writing, revising, editing, publishing, marketing, and everything in between. So come join us because we're starting right now. Okay, so we're going to be queuing up our show with Age of Ash. This is a prehistoric survival. But first, how do you submit? So let's just go over a couple of ground rules. If you want to submit to the critique show, like I said, submit. There's a submission link down in the YouTube description. All you got to do is fill out a couple questions like the genre, your pen name, things like that, so I know what to call you. And let's get that queued up. Once you submit your story, it gets placed into a queue. On average this year, I generally tend to get through about 4 to 5 stories per stream. If your story gets read on this stream, great. But if it doesn't, it gets queued up for the next story and critique show. This is a bi-weekly stream. So our next stream will be in 2 weeks on Saturday, December 13th. So definitely submit. I always recommend the sooner, the better. And then how do I critique? So let's queue up this page. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the process, as I got that. Awesome. So I like to break down the critiques into a couple areas, as we all know, to try to make it as easy as possible for writers to improve. I break it up into character development, world building, dialogue, plot or narrative, and style. So because a lot of these drafts are so early on, I generally won't focus as much on grammar, mistakes, typos, or inconsistencies, because generally at this point in the drafting process, we really want to focus on these 4 areas, or really 1, 2, and 4 the most, to make sure that the story makes sense, the characters are clear, and the plot is engaging. So these are where our focuses are, generally speaking. And then, of course, if you see me highlighting a section, no worries. That's just my way of making sure that I am staying on top of what I want to speak to. And most importantly, join the conversation. If there's something that stands out to you, drop a comment. If you really like a piece of dialogue, if you really like something, then make sure to say what it is and why. If there's a piece of dialogue, or if there's a plot beat, or if there's a character that just doesn't sit right with you, let us know. Why don't you like it? What doesn't resonate with you? Maybe it falls flat, maybe it's boring, because all feedback is good feedback. We want to help the writers in any way, shape, form possible, and we're going to assume that if we're submitting to the critique show, we want to make the stories as incredible, as amazing as possible. All feedback is good feedback as long as it is delivered in a way that is kind and clear. All right, so let's do it. So let me queue up Soul's story and we will get started. All right, I know, I am super excited. And I think this is, I don't think we've done like anything like this type of story before. So this is going to be very, very interesting. I'm very, very intrigued with what we're going to be getting into with this one. All right, and I'll make sure I got this. We got Souls and perfect. And I think I should have asked for the cover. I know Soul literally just made a cover for their story, or a tentative cover. I should have asked for it. But live and learn. All right, so let's do this. And I think I have this all set up. Perfect. All right, my friends. So we have Soul's story on deck. Once again, you can always submit if you want to get your story read. And we're going to see just what we can accomplish. Okay, so we are all ready. Okay, And I think I am all good. Oh, perfect. Soul just dropped me the cover. I was like, I know Soul just came out with Soul just made a tentative color for their story, Age of Ash, and I thought it'd just be super cool to show. If you have like a cover art, maybe that's something I'll actually start including in the submission form for people who want to submit like a cover art or a character concept if they have any designs, and I can show it off before we do the story reading. Helps with visualization. I don't know, I've never thought of that before. That might be cool. But this is the tentative. This is kind of a working cover art. I know Soul's planning on making more improvements to it, but this is the cover for Age of Ash. All right, and without further ado, Age of Ash, a prehistoric survival by author Hollow. And what do they need help with? All right, so this is a first draft, and let's see, they're looking for general feedback. They also want to know how animalistic versus human do the characters seem. So they want to know, do the characters seem more human? Do they seem more animal? We can absolutely help with that. Let's see. In the Age of Ash, the world is broken. Volcanoes scar the land, forests burn, and rivers run thick with fire and smoke. Alone, the young Pyroraptor Echo Fire must navigate this shadowed world, where every shadow hides a threat, every movement carries danger, and survival demands cunning, speed, and cruelty. Chapter 1. With a faint growl, Echo Fire crouched and drew herself forward, slowly through the grass. Ahead of her, high-pitched squeaks told her where the others were. Pushing her muzzle through the high strands, she narrowed her gaze and focused on the green and sand-colored feathers just ahead. A low snarl came from her left, and she screeched as a blur of sand and gray feathers bowled over her. A squeaky voice cried out, "Ha! Gotcha!" The green and sand-feathered raptor looked up, a strip of meat hanging from her jaws. Swallowing it quickly, she chirped and darted towards them. "You were being sneaky." Echo Fire yelped and shoved her sisters away, clumsily. "Leap, Pebble! Ruined it!" Her tail flagging, she raced out of the grass. Her feet thudded lightly against the ground, sending up small clouds of dust as she escaped. Leap Pebble chittered with laughter and pounded after her. "You didn't hide good enough!" Swerving around a thick clump of grass, Echo Fire gasped and thumped heavily into someone's side. Falling back with a gurgling groan, she shook her head to clear away the dizziness. A deep huff blasted over her, accompanied by a rumbling she knew to be laughter. "Remember to use your nose, little one." Songwind leaned down, poking her muzzle into Echo Fire's stomach and knocking her down. Letting out a sharp hiss, she scrambled to her feet and bared her teeth at the elder. "No pushing!" She stretched her claws threateningly, but the elder just laughed. A blur of green alerted her a second before her sisters pounced on her. With a high-pitched snarl, she fell under them, but snapped her jaws playfully as they tumbled around. Laughter rumbled around the clearing. Leap Pebble kicked her sisters away and raced towards their parents lying on the other side of the open space. Getting to her feet, Echo Fire shook dust from her feathers, her chest heaving. "Green Wing, let's try to sneak up on her," she said to the other hatchling. Tossing her head and bobbing her tail, Green Wing shuffled her feet. "Leap Pebble is too good at escaping, though. How are we going to sneak up on her? Her nose is better than ours." Tilting her head, her gaze flicked between her sisters. "Try circling around," Songwind suggested softly. Shifting her legs under her, she rose and leaned her head down to their level, lowering her voice. "Go into the bushes and come out behind your parents. She's got a good nose, but if you're downwind of her, she won't smell you coming nearly as well. Downwind? Echofire looked between her and Leap Pebble, who was stalking their mother's tail. Songwind nudged her to the side. Feel the wind. It's blowing from behind you, so your scent is blowing towards her. You need to change that so you can smell her. Try it. Raising her head, she patted to Ashclaw and settled against him. Chirping quietly, her claws scraping against the ground, Echofire caught Greenwing's gaze and nodded towards the other side of the clearing. Without a word, both hatchlings split and disappeared in the grasses on either side. The sun shone down hotly, the air feeling almost stuffy. An occasional breeze brought the dark scent of ash and something acrid. But Echofire shook her head and ignored it. The scent was familiar enough she could block it out already. She stepped carefully over the rocks, avoiding a crack that might trip her. As she passed, Sootfeather, who chuckled under his breath, she peeked through a clump of leaves to see Leap Pebble running in a circle, her jaws snapping at her tail. Marsh Fleet watched, her eyes half closed, letting out an amused growl. Tapping her claw, Echofire took her chance and sped up, leaping across a dry creek bed and diving behind a larger group of stones. Taking a deep breath, her feathers lifted excitedly as she smelled Leap Pebble's earthy scent underneath, Marsh Fleet's richer mud-like scent, and Littlefang's darker blood-tinged musk. Lowering herself, she almost crawled through the dirt as she approached her parents. She held back a sneeze. The sound came out as a strangled, muffled snort. Littlefang caught her eye, but he huffed in amusement and laid his head across her mother's back. Shifting his tail, he held it strangely. After a moment, Echofire realized he was using it as a block for her. Almost leaping with excitement, she darted behind him and peered through a gap in his feathers. Leap Pebble stood with her head up, twisting around and looking all over the clearing. Echofire? Greenwing? She took a few steps away, her head feathers lifted, her head twisting around, eyes wide. Feeling a nudge, Echofire almost jumped as Greenwing crept up beside her. Resisting a snort, she shook her head and jerked it towards Leap Pebble. Greenwing flexed her claws and moved to Marshfleet's other side. Waving her tail, she nodded her readiness. Echofire didn't hesitate. With a squeaking growl, she leaped over her father's tail and barreled into Leap Pebble's side at the same moment Greenwing shot out. Leap Pebble squawked in surprise, which turned into a chirping giggle as she and her sister scuffled over the ground. Finally, Echofire let out a loud screech, tossing her head in the air, and stood on Leap Pebble's flank. I won! With a squeak, Leap Pebble threw her off. Okay, fine. You got me, she grumbled. Shaking dust from her feathers, she twisted her head around and smoothed her feathers. When she finished, she turned to Marshfleet. Mother, I'm hungry. Is there any meat left? Sootfeather chittered from nearby. Over here, hatchlings. Looking over, Echofire spotted chunks of meat from something the adults had hunted earlier. Trotting over, she sniffed at a piece, then sank her teeth into it. Tugging hard, she tumbled back as a strip tore free. Blood dripped slowly from it, making her stomach growl. Eat slowly, Sootfeather told her gently. That's a big piece for you. Echofire snorted, settling down with the meat while her sisters tussled over their own pieces. Holding it down with one claw, she tugged hard, until a smaller strip came free. Gulping it down, her nostrils flared as a thick, acrid, bitter, stomach-turning scent washed over the sea. Littlefang shot to his feet. Songwind! Grab the hatchlings! Songwind's words were punctuated by a low rumbling that started in the ground, then tremored through the trees, then seemed to shake the air as it grew louder. Looking up in alarm, as Sootfeather raced over, Echofire screeched in surprise as the Odoraptor's teeth clamped gently around her middle. What's happening? The ground shuddered heavily, sending a few trees waving unnaturally. Littlefang grabbed Greenwing and shot through the grass before the other hatchling had time to react. His feathers popped up. Fear scent saturated the air like a haze, thick and choking. Head west, Songwind roared as the sound of tearing earth filled the air. A heavy smell of ash blasted over them, making her cough. Ashclaw shot to her side as Sootfeather took off running. Echofire, watching as a massive tree at the edge of the clearing, one of the few nearby swayed and tilted towards the pack. Just before Sootfeather dove into the tall grasses, Echofire's breath stopped as the tree crashed to the ground with the sound of thunder, breaking bones, and a scream cut off. Her nose stung. The scent was strangely familiar, yet not. And wrong. Death. End reading. Wow. First off, really incredible incredible tackle and take on doing a dinosaur-based story, a prehistoric story. That is difficult. That is very, very difficult to do. I feel like you did a lot of things very well with it. I can tell just how much research and thought you put into the world building and understanding the different aspects of each of these types of dinosaurs, understanding their movement, understanding their descriptions, and really trying to figure out which character is where in the world. Like, and I can definitely tell with the pack, I would say overall the pacing of the story works very well. I think the pacing is definitely a strength of it. This is for YA or adult, and I would say yeah, YA. This definitely feels YA. I think because the main character seems like they're kind of like a young teen in a sense in their pack. So I think this definitely seems like a YA story. I think I could totally get that. I think if you clarified her age early on with her age and proximity to however long dinosaurs live, that could also help solidify it as a YA. So, all right, so let's get into it because I think there's actually one major thing that's holding the story back right now. Let's see. So when I get into the different elements of it, your world building is definitely on point. You did an incredible job with world building. I think right now world building is the strongest. I would say actually I think the dialogue is actually serving the characters very well. I think world building and dialogue is doing well. I think and I can't really. I think the plot is good so far. I could tell you had I could tell that you had a good cliffhanger at the end, and the whole action with them trying to like bug the other dinosaur. I think that was a good plot choice. I think the biggest opportunities for this piece right now is a little character development and a little into the structure. So let's get into it. So I think so right now, the biggest thing that's holding this piece back is the character setups. The only character that I could, the only character, and this could partially be, so I take this with a grain of salt. This could also be because I'm doing a live reading, but the only character that I had a kind of a clear visual was Echo Fire because they're a protagonist. When I think of Echo Fire, I thought like, okay, they're like a raptor with feathers. Recognize, also, I had no knowledge of dinosaurs. Probably like a lot of people, my knowledge of dinosaurs is Jurassic Park. So if I think of dinosaurs, I'm like, all right, we got velociraptors and we got a T-Rex. And we got the pterodactyls are the ones that fly, I think. And that's about my knowledge. But especially in a world with dinosaurs, and I think the question you're asking yourself is your intended reader people who know dinosaurs and want to explore more of the world, or is your intended reader people who are just casual readers and want to explore like a new type of like animal type world? Two different types of readers, but I would recommend making it as easy as possible. The greatest challenge that I had was because you have all these very unique names, and by the way, your naming structure is on point. I love your naming structure. Once again, the naming structure goes into how well the world building is with this piece. But naming structure aside, the only thing that really stood out with each of these characters was their names. But it was hard for me to visualize what each of these like characters looked like because I don't really understand what these dinosaurs are. Now, like even going into it between the cover and the blurb, like we already know we're going into a prehistoric age. So I think what you need is I think you need a clear like a paragraph description. What do these dinosaurs look like? And let's see if you did. I know you're doing it through action. Let's see with faint crowd, echo fire crowd, and drew yourself forward. Pushing her muzzle, shooting her gaze, and I think you do a low snarl. The green and sand feathered raptor. Yep. Okay. Yeah. So I was right about that. She's like the green raptor. Looked up, a strip of meat swung. She chirped and darted towards him. No, okay, so the green feathered raptor is somebody else. I think Leap Pebble is the green and sand feathered raptor. So it's like things like that. Like this, I think this is Leap Pebble, but because I don't have a clear enough visualization on Echo Fire, now the reader could start getting confused. So what we need is we need Echo Fire to be clear. Since she's the protagonist, I need to know what she looks like first. Let's see. And then Echo Fire leaped. Or do all of them look the same? Are they all sand Are they all like sand feather raptors? I think what would be Hugh is some type. I think what this story. I think what it needs is it needs a not a prologue. This story actually might benefit from like a something akin to a prologue, some type of description, or maybe like an elder telling like a brief one-page story about the raptors and about their place in the world. Something like that. You know, kind of like that opening with Land Before Time, where it kind of they set up the world in the voiceover. But I think it needs some type of setup like that. Now I know you're thinking about doing images as well, and that helps. But I think we want to make sure that from a pure reading experience, the readers can understand the characters. So, set up towards what do the characters look like in general? Are they all? I'm assuming they're all sand raptors. Oh, okay. Yeah, so you are planning on having a prologue then. That makes sense. So one, we need to make sure that we're clear on who all these raptors are, and are they all sand feathered raptors? And then B, because you have so many characters, each character needs a setup. Now this one is good. I like this. So, Leap Pebble is the green and sand feathered raptor. Cool. But because I don't have a visual on Echo Fire, I get kind of confused, right? You're being sneaky, and then Leap Pebble. Okay, cool. Leap Pebble is the green raptor. Cool. Um, and then because you introduce a lot of different characters, we need a setup with each character. Otherwise, then all I know is like the names like Greenwing. Let's try to sneak up on her. And they're like, all right, well, who's Green? So is Greenwing like somebody? Is that like a raptor with a wing? I mean, I'm just assuming based off the names, it's a raptor with a wing. And then the problem that you end up running into is because we don't have a setup on the initial characters, each name then just becomes a name, and it becomes harder for the reader to visualize. Okay, cool, cool. So descriptions aside, and what one of the things that I liked is you do some really fun things with dialogue. So like even though like description aside, like I love what you're doing with the dialogue and the action. I know the action and the dialogue is working. And I think once readers have a better visual, I think this will be really strong. And it's like I can totally visualize this. Like even though Songwin leaned down, I assume Songwin is like a father or mother like type of like dinosaur, and they're like an older one. Remember to use your nose, little one. I think that works. I think we just need a little bit more on like, okay, what does Songwin look like? Letting she scrambled, no pushing. Letting out she scrambled her feet and burned her teeth. The elder, no pushing. I'm assuming this is Echo Fire because you have so many characters in this scene. Anytime another character speaks, you make it crystal clear that this is Echo Fire. Simply because we have what like three, four. I think we have four characters introduced by this point. Oh, this is a cute moment though. She stretched her claws threatening, but the elder just laughed. That's a really cute moment. And I think this action, what they're doing with sneaking up on the others, I think that's actually a really smart action, which is why I think the plotting is really strong in this chapter. I would clarify who they want to sneak up on specifically. Because she's talking to Greenwing, and I'm assuming Greenwing is a raptor with a wing. So yeah, I would say just clarify who they want to sneak up on. I'm assuming when I'm visualizing this, I assume that there's three raptors. We have um, Echo Fire, Greenwing, and Leap Pebble. Wait, Leap Pebble is too good at escaping. How are we going to sneak up on her? They're sneaking up on Leap Pebble. Leap Pebble is too good at escaping though. Okay, so right now we have Greenwing and Echo Fire. Oh, I thought actually they were with Leap Pebble. I thought Leap Pebble was with them. Let's see. So try circling around, and then we have Songwin suggested softly. Shifting her legs under her, she rose and laid her head down. Songwin is helping them out. And I think this action does work. You're getting help from Songwind, whoever they are, to help them with sneaking. And I think that action overall is good. And then Ashclaw, once again, we have another character that I'm not sure who they are. Because then by this point, I think we have six. I think we've been introduced to six characters, which six characters within, let's see, this is 5. So if the text was normal, this would be 6 characters within 3 pages. That's kind of a lot. I also might recommend not introducing so many characters so quickly. Because it makes it hard for the reader to visualize. It can be done. It can be done. Yeah, it just comes down to descriptions. Downwind, raising her head, chirping quietly. And I like the description of the world. Like I think I get a sense of like this like prehistoric like jungle. I'm imagining they're in like some type of like clearing, like their home is like a clearing within a jungle of some type. But you know what's interesting is even though I haven't really been able to visualize the characters, every single time I hear these names, I like want to know more. The names do such a good job of building intrigue. I'm like soot feather, like is that like a dinosaur that has like a feather that's like is all it looks like he has soot on it? Like these names are so interesting, and I love our protagonist's name. Echofire is a great name. Let's see, Echofire. 6, and then I think Sapphire is character number 7. Marshfleet is 8. Littlefang is 9. Yeah, I think we almost have 10 characters in chapter 1. Littlefang caught her eye, but he huffed in amusement. Yes. Okay, yeah. So the attack is on Leap Pebble. I think I probably got lost on who it was they were targeting because Leap Pebble was on the first page with them, and then she wasn't on the third page with them anymore. So I think that I wasn't sure, but I could have missed the action that Leap Pebble moved away. Yeah, if they're going to be attack or doing this like little like practical joke against Leap Pebble probably doesn't need to be introduced on page 2. If they're doing this joke against Leap Pebble. I think the second character that should be introduced is then the one that Echofire is consorting with, which I think is Greenwing. Greenwing should probably be the second one introduced if Greenwing is Echo's partner in crime in this little prank. But I think this is a cute moment. I actually really do like this. It makes me think that Leap Pebble is probably the sidekick. It's probably going to be like a sidekick type character. Either Leap Pebble is a sidekick type character, or they're going to die pretty early on and create motivation for Echofire. Yeah, and then I mean I think the rest of it is good. Like I get the sense with like the parents and the children. I think that works out well. And then we have a something is happening with the ground trembling. Yeah, and this is a really good cliffhanger. I think the cliffhanger it might be my favorite part about the chapter. Something like ash is coming through. There's like ash in the air, and a tree has fallen, and it looks like something in their pack has died, or there's some type of death. Very great cliffhanger. So awesome. Really, really great, great work, my friend. I'm definitely really looking forward to seeing how this evolves. Like I said, it's like even with the character descriptions and setups aside, I think this is actually a really strong piece. I think, and once again, like when we think about setups, I can still visual like I can understand where the intent is, and I recognize like okay, all it needs is just setting up each a couple of these characters, and then the rest of the piece will be super clear. Like for me, it's actually setups is actually a very easy unlock, but for the average reader, if they don't see setups, they're like, oh, this is confusing. But I think setups are really easy to do. So yeah, really, really great work, my friend. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this is evolving, and I really want to know what's going on with this Ash. I really want to know what's going on. When I think of Ash, I'm like, all right, all I know is the what's that? What killed the dinosaurs? Is there like the comet that's coming down that killed the dinosaurs? That's all that I know. I'm like, is there an ice age coming? Yeah, that's about my extent of dinosaur history. All right, Kauffman will stop talking. Thanks so much for submitting that, my friend. That was definitely a fun little read. Definitely a fun little read. So really, really great work, and looking forward to see what we see. So next up on deck is, let me pull up. Next up on deck is going to be After the Fall, which is a crime drama by author Whaat. Sorry, I don't know if you wanted it done like that, but I just really liked that. I like the author name. What? Love it. But so this is actually going to be a really intense piece too. So we're switching gears. So we'll be kicking off into Whaat's crime drama in just a moment. And by the way, if you're enjoying the stream, follow or subscribe. We've done almost 700 consecutive writing streams. If you need help staying motivated, if you need help keeping yourself accountable, or if you just want to procrastinate with other writers, the Write Now community is the place to do it. We got a Discord where the writers hang out. We do writing events all the time. We just did a fiction contest. We got a writing celebration coming up, and we do writing sprints every single day. We got writers group and so much more. So if you're just wanting to come and be part of an active writing community, the Write Now community is the place for you. So make sure to tap that follow or subscribe button, and you'll be alerted when we go live. Whew. All right, let's see. What did you guys think in the comments? We started the one question that Sol asked. I didn't even answer. That's actually really funny. Lmae said you succeeded in making them animalistic. That was the one thing Sol wanted to know, and I didn't even answer that. Sol, you did succeed in making them animalistic. I felt like you're actually doing the same thing that I'm doing with Scarecrow. They definitely feel like they're dinosaurs, but they're your main POV feels like it kind of has like that. Your main POV feels like it has like a humanistic enough mindset that the reader can get behind. So, I mean, that's the same thing I do with Scarecrow, right? Even though Scarecrow is clearly a creature, not a human. He still has that kind of like human-like way of framing thoughts and thinking, so that way it feels like the reader can get behind it. I think you did a good job of accomplishing that. Completely agree. Yeah, and I mean, so like this is the challenge we take on with like characters. When we think about characters, and especially with a new with a chapter one, every single character we introduce has to matter. Every single one has to have an impact. So if whenever we introduce a character, the reader is getting a visualization in their mind of like, okay, who is this character? It takes the reader a little bit to kind of get the grasp on characters. Can a bunch of characters be introduced in a chapter? Absolutely, and it has been done. It's difficult because you basically have to cement each single character with a clear enough visualization that the reader doesn't get lost. Now, the challenge with doing it early on in chapter one is the reader still trying to visualize the world and the story. They don't care about anything yet. So if you try to introduce all this information to a reader and they don't yet care about anything, they're just going to get frustrated because like there's too much I don't understand, and because they don't care, then they'll just DNF. So that's why it's harder to do such a large cast in a chapter one. But I'm sure it's been done. If anybody knows books where there's been a large cast of characters introduced in chapter one, would love to hear it. Great question, Francisca. You said, hey, Kauffman, what days do these story critiques take place? So, for anyone who's just hopping into the stream, this is the story and critique stream. This is episode 54. We've done 240 live stories read and critiqued. We do the story and critique stream every other Saturday. This is a bi-weekly stream where I do live stories and then live critiques. If you want to get feedback on your story, on a story excerpt, submit now. The submission link is down in the YouTube description. If we have time for it, we'll get to it today. Otherwise, it will get queued up for the next story and critique stream. Like I said, it's every other Saturday, so the next one will be on Saturday, December 13th. So bi-weekly stream. Great question, Francisco. You should definitely submit, my friend. Would love to take a crack at some of your storytelling. And I guess I should probably just drop into the comments too. I don't know why I always forget to copy the critique show submission thing. I like talk about it. I'm like, yeah, it's down in the YouTube description, but I should make it easier. Let's see, story and critique show guidelines. WriteNow links. Here we go. Critique show submission form. There we go. Perfect. Just dropped it in the chat for y'all. So for anybody who wants to check it out, I just dropped the critique show submission form in the chat. I think that is. I think the Ice Age killed the dinosaurs, but I don't know. I don't know enough about prehistoric history beyond maybe very generalized things. I assume Ice Age killed the dinosaurs. But wasn't there a comet? Wasn't there a comet or an asteroid or something that said to kill it? Wasn't it some type of asteroid or something that basically caused a change in the weather that then led to the Ice Age? I could have sworn that's what it was, but I don't know. I'm really curious. I want to know what killed the dinosaurs. I have to know this now. What killed the dinosaurs? The most widely accepted theory is that a massive asteroid impact 66 million years ago, which created the Chicxulub crater in Mexico, caused the mass extinction of the dinosaurs. This impact triggered a global cataclysm, including wildfires, tsunamis, and dust that blocked out the sun, leading to drastic climate changes that the dinosaurs could not survive. Volcanic activity from the Deccan traps in India may have also contributed to the extinction by causing additional long-term environmental stress. Yep, so it was the asteroid. So the asteroid is what led to environmental disaster. Hey, what's up, Marta? Welcome, my friend. Marta, you are completely going to laugh. There's in the queue, there's a story. There's a Harry Potter fan fiction story in the queue coming up. If you stick around long enough, you'll be able to hear the Harry Potter fan fiction. Of all the other writers I know you're another Harry Potter nerd like myself. Okay. All right. So we're going to get up. We're going to queue up into this next one. Let me throw it up on the stream. All right, and let's see what we see. So this next one, we are diving into a completely different style with a crime drama. Ooh. Let's see, perfect. So we're going to see just how we can help out. What? All right, perfect. All right, and I think I am all ready. After the Fall, a crime drama by Whaat. This is a first draft of a novel. They're looking for feedback, nothing in particular, just feedback to better their story and writing. This is about a World War vet who comes home and is met by an old friend who offers him a job smuggling. After accepting the offer, the vet is brought into the world of crime during Prohibition. There I was, back home, back in the snowy, bustling city, back in the city where your only options in life is a black man, or the port or a factory. I had spent a year away fighting in the war, a year of blood and mud in a desperate attempt to get away. I expected to come back to a tired out welcome home party because I returned later than the others. To my surprise, the people on my block were ecstatic that Jackson McKee was finally home. Took to the steps leading up to the door, not knowing what to expect, but everything was still the same. The spot where the paint had chipped on the door, the squeaky rail were all still there. After a slight knock, the door ferociously swung open, and I was pulled into a group of arms. Ma, Jazz, you're hurting me. I'm a little sore. Through a valley of tears, they managed to apologize. Ma had just finished cooking breakfast, and like a warm blanket, the aroma had wrapped itself around me. I wasted no time pushing Jasmine's buttons. Jazz, can you fix your older brother a plate? She quickly mumbled back. By 3 minutes. It was that piece of normalcy that brought a smile to my face. Our mother would never tell us who was first. She would only say we were 3 minutes apart. After the welcome home dinner, I finally found some time alone in my room. At least I thought. The door violently creaked open, with Jasmine falling behind it. Jackson, what happened to you over there? You've been more distant than normal, Jasmine said as she sat at the edge of the bed. Jazz, the only thing I'm willing to tell you is that I met some interesting guys over there. There was Claude, a fast-talking card cheat from Louisiana. Elby, he was the quiet one, but he made sure that we were taken care of. Enough about me. What about you? Well, I'm still singing at Wilma's Lounge, and Lena helped me get a part-time job at her aunt's store. You know, at some point, yawn, you're going to have to talk to her. I'm exhausted. Well, good night, little brother, said Jasmine. A few weeks passed, and I had hit rock bottom. The only job that I could find was at the port. Work at the port was long and grueling. As much as I hated it, the job kept my mind clear. Every once in a while, a pallet drops, and I'm back in France for a few seconds. Jackson! Jackson! Come here, I need an extra set of hands, the foreman yelled out. He gave us the job of offloading a small boat that just came in. The crates this boat had must have weighed a ton, because it took two of us to slide one box. Before I could get in a position to push the crate again, a low grumbling snore had filled the cargo hold. I peered back to see a man with brownish hair, laid out clutching a nearly empty bottle in his hand. He somehow managed to roll over in the cramped corner he was in, and to my disbelief it was Harry. Harry! Harry! Wake up! Stop kicking me, Jackson, before the nurse takes you. Aw, Jackson! Bloody hell, Jackson, what are you doing here? Harry said as he struggled sitting up. The same could be said for you. I'm from Dalton City, remember? Answered Jackson. Oh, and this might be the end. Okay, so I'm guessing this is chapter 1. I'm from Dalton City, remember? Answered Jackson, and this might be chapter 2. I think that would be my guess. Okay, so let's pause. Pause that. I have some good feedback for this. So once again, end reading. What really, really great job. Let's do this. End reading. All right. So first off, really, really great work. So I think what's really interesting is I can tell you've put a lot of thought into the different characters and the world for the story. Let me think. I would say that the characters worked, the world worked. What's interesting is this isn't the type of story that I would normally read, but I think you have a clear enough description and visualization of your main character and their journey as they're coming home from a type of war and they're returning to some type of normalcy. I think you set that up very well with them coming home to their family. I liked you have some really fun descriptions in there And I think that really works. What is holding some pieces of this story back? I think there's some structuring opportunities to make some of the to make it a little bit more readable. But I mean, I think it's very straightforward. I think you probably could give us a little bit more motivation for a main character, so that way the reader is like hooked and like they have to keep reading. But let's dive into it. All right. So, like I said, I think what's working very well right now, I think your plot works. I think your plot is working right now. I think your main character's development is strong enough. I think we could have a little bit more on the motivation, but I think the character development is working so far. And then, of course, the structure needs a couple opportunities. Granted, this is a first draft, so we're not going to worry about grammar too much, but especially as you continue to refine this, there's some tweaks you're going to want to make so that way when you start passing off to alpha readers, beta readers, or an editor, you want to make it as clear and readable as it is for them. Let's see. So let's see. There I was back home, back in and let's see. So I think back home, back in the city, where only options in life as a black man, we're the port of the factory. It's been so. Yeah, I think you do a good job of setting up the year and the world. A year of blood and mud and a desperate attempt to get away. I love how you did the setup. I think the setup is actually very, very strong. To my surprise, the people on my block were ecstatic that Jackson McKee was finally home. I think that works. I actually kind of like this as a way of establishing our main character. Um, there I was back home. Yeah, I mean, I'm actually pretty. I'm good with this opening paragraph. I think the only thing I would add is what year is it? I think I want to know. I think I want to be introduced. What year are we in? I think in this chapter, England 1918. So we're in the early 1900s. I think at the very beginning, at a year of blood, 1918, a year of blood. I think establishing the year, or it doesn't even have to be exact year. You could just say a year of blood, early 1900s, or something to that effect. I think it'd help continue to solidify the reader. Or even if you wanted to give us a time period, I think it'd work as well. I took the steps leading up the door, but not knowing what to expect, but everything was still the same. The spot where the paint had chipped in the door, the squeaky rail were all still there. This is good. This is really good character development, by the way. As they're recognizing things, the way they're the things that are familiar to them about their home. This is actually a really good setup for this character. I think, and what happens with these characters is good. The only thing that I'm really missing from the first section is I don't know what Jackson's motivation is. Other than that, he's returning home. I'm assuming from it's been a year, so he's returning home from war. What does Jackson want? Because I don't know what his motivation is, it's hard for me to connect with the character emotionally because I don't know what he wants. Other than that, he's coming home from war. Does he just want to get away from it all? Does he just want to come and eat his family's food? Does he want to escape? Does he want to go back to war? Does he want a job? And I think yeah, I see that. You're like prohibition. Yeah, it was so it and I think like that worked. Like it's the same thing with Soul Story. Like technically the reader knows what age they're going into if it's prohibition, but I think clarifying that could help the reader as well. Right? For those who aren't familiar with what happened during prohibition or with what entailed in that era. But it also depends on who your readership is. So um if your readership is okay, people who are like history buffs or people who are very familiar with that era, then you need to do less work on setting up. If your intended reader is a general readership, people who don't know that much about history, then you're going to want to do more setup. Really depends on who your intended reader is. I didn't like ferociously here for some reason. The door ferociously swung open. I don't, yeah, something about that. Just I didn't like the word ferociously here. I would just say the door swung open. I was like, how does a door ferociously swing open? I was like, bam. I was like, The door swung open. And I think like with, and this is just like, I say this with writers sometimes, this is where sometimes we'll rely on extra descriptions when I just don't think this is necessary, right? You could go the door maybe flung open might be better. You could replace both of these, turn this into one word, and get the same thing. The door flung open. Let's see, Majed. But I think what I like is this, your initial character interactions with his mother, and I think Jazz is his sister, is actually very, very good. I do like that. Um, I think because you do have some actions going on, this goes into your structuring. Um, I would make these different paragraphs. So that way you don't end up confusing the reader, because this is a beat. When we think about paragraph structure, we want to separate paragraphs by different beats. What happens if you keep this a single paragraph, then the end of the paragraph gets lost on the reader. So you want to definitely separate these paragraphs. But this is good, right? Starting this off with the Valley Tears, like that's good. This is going to breakfast. No time pushing, Jasmine's buttons. Jazz, can you fix your brother a plate? And I think this little back and forth between them is really well done. This is a cute moment with the family. And by the way, paragraphs or with dialogue always goes within the quotation marks. That's just me being an editor. Let's after the welcome home dinner. And I like this. I like that he's kind of explaining a little bit about what happened over there. When you have a paragraph that's just fully dialogue like this, what you want is you're going to want more action. So otherwise, in the readers, it just too much dialogue just doesn't always work well. So I think in cases like this, I would go, Jazz. The only thing I'm going to tell you is that I met some interesting guys over there. My little sis came sat on the bed consoling me, right? So whatever the action is, you can do whatever it is, but that's just an example, right? You want some type of action will help differentiate between the when you have just dialogue paragraphs like that. This was interesting that you did this here. This is something that would happen in a script. I don't think you would ever do this. You know, at some point, so the way you would break up dialogue like that, I'll show you. So the right way to break up dialogue, and I actually love breaking up dialogue like this. So the right way to break up dialogue, you know, at some point, you could put a dialogue here. What you have to do is you have to add a speech tag here. So basically, you're doing this when you're in the middle of a sentence and you want to add, or when you're in the middle of a dialogue and you want to add action. So right here, I'll just do this to show you guys how to do this correctly. Okay, so this is actually one of my favorite things. I love doing this with dialogue. So we'll show you right here how we're going to do this. So right now, this is technically the dialogue. You know, at some point, you're going to have to talk to her. But right now, they want to break the dialogue up with a yawn. So when you break up dialogue, this is one of the few, this is actually one of the only instances where you don't have to use, a speech tag on both sides of the dialogue to precede it. So you have to use one speech tag and then you can add an action. So, you know, at some point, he said, yawning. You're going to have to talk to her. So you see, this is how you would break up dialogue with a speech tag and the action, right? So you know at some point he said yawning, you're going to have to talk to her because this is the same structure and you can get away with that. Technically, you don't need a speech tag right here because we've already used it here and we've established that this is the same sentence. That you're just breaking up the sentence with an action. You could also do the same thing the opposite way. You know, at some point, yawning, he said. You could also do it like that. It sounds better the other way, though. And this is just one example. You could say he whispered. You could use whatever speech tag you want. I think he said is stronger because then it lets us focus on yawning. So, FYI, I love breaking up dialogue like that because I think action always helps serve dialogue. Yep. And then we go into this next beat. A few weeks pass, and we're kind of going to the next beat, right? How work's kind of just a rock bottom for him. So I think that I really like the family scene because I feel like I start kind of like getting to know the family. I still don't know what his motivation is, but I like the family scenes a lot, and I think the setup that you're doing with the family is good. But based on what you're sharing, this kind of leads me to believe that his motivation is that he's just trying to get away from the war. He's trying to not think about all the bad things that happened over there. That's kind of my guess, but I'm not quite sure. Appeared. So we have another character over here. The foreman yelled out. I think I would just give a little description on who is the foreman exactly, so that way we can have a visualization. Is the foreman like some like lazy fat dude, overweight, who doesn't care? Is he some like skinny tall guy, glasses, taskmaster? Nobody likes him. Just give us a description who the foreman is. And you gave us the description of Harry, which I actually liked. Harry's kind of like a Harry's our resident alcoholic. And you don't need to break this up with more dialogue since this is all the same character speaking. Yep. And I think we get to the end of this beat. But yeah, I mean, I think this was a good start. I actually wanted to know more about Harry. You kind of made me really kind of intrigued by Harry because I liked his dialogue. So yeah, so I would say so far, Harry, I think my favorite character so far, I kind of like the mom and the sister. I like the mom and the sister, and then I'm intrigued by Harry. I want to know more about Harry's character. So yeah, that is what I got for you, my friend. Yeah, and then I think I don't know if this is the end of the chapter or if this was just the excerpt that you had. Um, it doesn't feel like a completed chapter, but then you had a separate section which is a completely different beat. So I'm guessing this is a different chapter, but I'm just not sure. I think for the end of this, I would recommend if this isn't the end of the chapter, then there's probably more that you're just working on. If this is the end of the chapter, I would recommend making it a little stronger and ending it on like an emotional, some type of story beat, right? With like what happens with Jackson and Harry. Or is there some type of conflict or some type of obstacle or something that is going to change the story and uh, help Jackson either get closer to what he wants or further away from what he wants. So, yep. Overall, really, really great work, my friend. And thank you so much for submitting. Awesome. And what two completely different stories, by the way? What two completely different stories? We went from prehistoric dinosaurs to, and you said crime drama. I actually get where it's probably going to lead up to crime drama, but so far I haven't gotten any type of crime feeling from it yet. What I would recommend to establish that it's crime is maybe when Jackson gets to his house, like he's passing like some type of like really bad crime on the way there, and you could help us establish the city. What does crime look like in the city? Jackson could maybe he passes by like some kids getting beaten up or some like thugs doing something bad, but he just ignores it because he just wants to get home and see his family. So I think you could establish that with the world without having Jackson actually do anything. So that'd be my recommendation. But overall, great work. Really, really great first draft. And definitely looking forward to seeing how revisions come along. And always feel free to resubmit. Awesome. And the next story we're going to be queuing up. Let's see. So we're going to be going into, let's see, more. What do we got next? So we're actually, what do I have here? as I'm like getting my bearings. So we're going to be diving into sci-fi. So Calvin, we're going to be going into your excerpt next with the Storm Chronicles Volume 2. So Calvin, we're going to be going into yours next with Storm Chronicles Volume 2. All right. So, Calvin, we're going to hop into Storm Chronicles 2. For those of you who've been along with the journey, you know we've done different excerpts of it. I know Calvin just finished the draft for this book. So, we'll see how we can help you out and how we can help him with this next chapter. Wonderful, wonderful. But how are you doing? What did you think of the story? Let's hop into the comments before we hop into that. And who all is ready to submit their stories. If you haven't submitted your story before, I want to see you submit your story. I want to see your writing chops. Submit your story now. Whether or not we get to it in today's critique stream or a future critique stream, you see, we accept, I read all story genres, all styles, whether it's a novel, fan fiction, poetry, script, or something in between. So submit now because I want to read your stories and help you be a better writer. All right. And let's see. So what do you guys think in the comments? Let me catch up here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of agree with that with the ending of the chapter. You did call that out. I wasn't sure if the ending, I think it was hard to tell if that ending was intentional or not. It might not have been the ending, but I think that's just the end of what they submitted, but it was kind of hard to say. But I agree with that. And as we all know, right, as readers, why are endings of chapters important? Because the ending needs to hook the reader to want to keep reading into the next chapter. Endings, so important. There's so many different ways to end a chapter, especially depending on genre standards. I personally, as a fantasy author, I like to. How often do I end my chapters on cliffhangers? I want to say I probably end chapters on cliffhangers maybe about 40% of the time. The other 60% of the time, I end it on the end of a story beat with the character having grown or learned something as they're getting ready for the next chapter. Because there's definitely a lot of story arcs in Scarecrow where they span more than one chapter, and of course, when a story arc within my book, The Last Scarecrow, spans more than one chapter, then of course the middle chapters end on cliffhangers. So, but you also do want to have chapters where the characters end on like a cathartic beat, on like a slow beat, because you want the reader to also be able to absorb. If you just had a crazy fight scene or a crazy battle, you want the reader to be able to absorb just what just happened and for them to be able to take a breather with the character. Um, Finding balance between different types of chapter endings is what it's all about. So, really good call. Actually, chapter endings would probably be a good. That'd probably be a good video to do, actually. Let me write that down. Chapter endings would definitely be a good one to do. It's like, I don't think I've seen any videos on chapter endings. Chapter endings. All right. Let's see. What else? Hey, what's up, my bad? I saw you hop in a little earlier. These are some good questions that you're asking, Mast. You're like, I was unsure how old he was. Also his motivation. Okay, he wants a job, but why? Does he have super strong work ethic? Does he motivated by materialism? So I wish I knew more about his looks. Yeah, I think we could get a little bit more description. I just wasn't sure what he looked like. The only real description you gave us was that a Jackson McKee was a black man. That was like the only description that you gave us. Outside of his name, um we didn't really get much more. Like what is his like maybe like what does he wear? What because he just came home from the army. Was he in like an army uniform? I think that visualization could help us as well. That's a good call out. Prohibition in Poland means that you cannot buy alcohol between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Yeah, Prohibition in America was 1920 to 1933. Yep, almost complete illegalization of alcohol. Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we ever learned where the main home was. Yeah, I was like, I don't think we ever learned where his main home was. Did he say the city? He just said a snowy, bustling city, but I don't think we ever learned what city it was. Yeah, so detailing what city it was could help as well. That's a good call out. All right, so let's hop into the next reading. And we're going to be sticking with our military sci fi. So, Calvin, for those of you who know, Calvin, we've definitely gone through a number of your story excerpts. And as I was reviewing this chapter, I think we might have went through this chapter maybe like a year. It's been a while. I think we do. I think we did, but hard to say. Debatable. I think we went through a previous draft of this chapter. Um, so let me cue it up on my end. All right, and I think I got it here. So, for those of you who want to check out different pieces of Calvin's story, you can always check out the Story and Critique show. We have the archives of all the stories that have been submitted linked down in the YouTube description. And let's see what we see. All right. Let's see. So this is the second book. Looks like this is chapter 2 from the second book, The Storm Chronicles. It looks like he's looking for flowing and pacing. This is a first draft. And yeah, so he wants to know how it flows and if the pacing works for it. All right. And let's see how we can help out Calvin. Storm Chronicles Volume 2, a military sci-fi by Calvin Hammond. Chapter 2, Kylie. Location, Artemis Urban Training Camp. Date, December 26, 2258. Time, 1935 hours locally. Dressed in digi green and with a full combat load, Jennifer shouldered her rifle and approached a dark building. She held up a fist, then made a circle, gesture telling the two squads to fan out. They spread out, their weapons trained on the building. Jennifer took a knee and gestured for one of her squad mates to come next to her. He ran next to her and slid to take a knee, kicking up some dust. What do you think, Sergeant Horvath? I thought I saw some lights before it all went dark. This is the fifth building we've been to tonight, ma'am. I'm willing to bet a month's pay that this is the right one, but we should proceed with caution. Squad 2 stack up on 2 side of the building. Squad 3, I want you guys on the 4 side of the building. Squad 1, we're taking the 1 side. 2 and 3 set up charges. Breach on my go. NVGs only from this point out. No lights. The squads acknowledged and headed to the sides of the building, while Jennifer put on her NVG, night vision goggles, and led her squad to the front. They stacked up 2 on each side of the door. Jennifer tried with a subtle movement to open the door using the doorknob, but it was locked. She then made several hand signals to the Horvath. He nodded, set his pack down, and pulled out a battering ram. Then she heard radio click 2 times twice, then 3 clicks doing the same thing. Both the squads were ready. Jennifer pulled out a flashbang while the 2 Marines at the head of the stacks readied their weapons. She put her hand on the shoulder of the Marine in front of her, and he touched it back. They were ready. Breach! Two muffled explosions could be heard as breaching charges detonated. Horvath moved into position and hammered the door with a shot that forced it open. Jennifer pulled the pin and threw the flashbang inside, and heard a loud popping sound. The Marines all blitzed the room shouting, "Surrender!" Their ambush was perfect, and they had easily won the game over the 3 squads from Bravo Company. Except for one problem, they weren't there save for mannequins with a sign that read, "Not here." Jennifer got angry. Jennifer got angry, and this was compounded when rubber duckies were thrown in the room. Everyone was confused for a moment. That was all Bravo Company needed as they stormed in. The room became a cacophony of rifles discharging and suits beeping loudly. Jennifer sighed and put her hands up in surrender. Though with her suit beeping, it was hard for a corpse to surrender. The ambush had been so effective, she was sure they all died with full magazines. She went and picked up a rubber ducky. She scowled when she saw the words, "Quack, bang, bitch," written on it. Classy. While Bravo Squad celebrated, she was downtrodden. Lights outside turned on and Humvees showed up. Everyone spilled out of the house and technicians went to turn off the vests and collect the weapons. Jennifer was stuck in her own world when someone shouted, "10 Hut!" Everyone straightened up as the company commander, Captain Turner, approached them. A tall, black-haired man with a stern face that glared at everyone for a moment. "Good work, Lieutenant Darling. Excellent job disrupting Alpha Team's oodla loop. The rubber duckies were a nice touch. Alpha Company, the breach itself was textbook. However, you failed to check the other buildings to see if anyone was hiding inside them. You entered the building without taking any time to gather intel. That's a fatal flaw, as you've discovered. Everyone learn from your mistakes. I know it's different than you are used to. Many of you are expected to already be back in your machines, and I assure you will be back in them soon. However, we're at war. If we are called to the front to fight in our flesh and bone bodies, then that's how we'll fight. Now all of you are dismissed, save for Lieutenant Day." Jennifer held back a groan. She knew she fucked up. The squad saluted and dispersed while she hung back. He waited until everyone was out of earshot to speak. "Lieutenant, have you talked to the docs yet?" Jennifer was confused. "Of course, sir. I saw her just before Christmas. She was happy and signed me off after a single session. I'm lucky I didn't need physical therapy like some of the guys in the battalion." Turner frowned. "I understand she cleared you, or else you wouldn't be out in the field, but you do seem distracted and anxious as you fell into an obvious trap. I'm concerned about you taking over the platoon. If your bad performance persists, then I'll be forced to pull you from active duty and send you to the shrinks for a full workup." "Yes, sir, I understand." "Good. Now go shower and get a meal. Dismissed." Jennifer saluted Turner, who gave her a nod and went back to his Humvee. When he was gone, it took all of her willpower not to collapse to the ground under the weight of her kit. She knew she was under a microscope and couldn't show any cracks in her visage. She walked out of the training field and headed for the barracks. The walk was good for her to rest her stressed mind. She still had some lingering thoughts about everything going on. The part on her mind the most was the severity of the offensive the skinnies had launched. They attacked 6 systems in all, and only their refueling base at Pabulam was able to repel the attack. In every other system, they had overwhelmed what fleet presence there was and landed troops. One of them was the planet Gibraltar, the jewel of the outer colonies and her home planet. Officially, in her jacket, her home world was the inner core world of Hesfat, where she lived with her father. In truth, though, she spent 14 years living with her mother and father on Gibraltar. But when her mother passed away after a hover accident, her father accepted a job on Hesfat and moved away to marry her stepmother, whom she suspected she was having an affair with. She wanted to stay with her maternal grandmother, but her father had forbidden it, and she had never forgiven him. She had been wondering for days how her grandmother was doing, but she had no way to contact anyone, and information had been scarce. The last word she'd received was that guard units had been deployed planet-wide with the orders to dig in while they waited for Marine reinforcements to arrive. Jennifer wanted to get her machine repaired and head to Gibraltar, but scuttlebutt was that the bulk of their forces were heading to the agriculture world of Ejo. She hated it, but she understood that without Ejo, they would have to get food shipments from the core worlds, and that it would take a while to get to them. When she reached the barracks, Jennifer stowed her gear, stripped down, and took a hot shower. She sat there under the warm water as it cascaded down her body. She felt her sore muscles relax, and after a few minutes, she washed the dirt and grime off her body. When she was done, she shut the shower off and went back to her bunk, dressed in shorts and a shirt that said Marines on it. She sat on the edge of her bunk with her head in her hands. She tried to banish all thoughts about her grandmother, but no matter what, she couldn't clear her mind. Out of frustration, she grabbed her tablet and scrolled through news articles. All the news was upbeat and displayed a positive spin of the war. After a while of scrolling, she put the tablet away. She knew there was nothing to do except train and wait for orders. End reading. Awesome. So Calvin, once again, really, really awesome work. I can tell from the last time that we read this chapter, I think some of the beats are a little clearer. And granted, it has been a while, but I would say I absolutely love the rubber duck moment. I think that's really, really clear. I think this chapter is actually accomplishing a lot. So once again, this is the second chapter of the second book, and you're accomplishing character development for Jennifer, of which, if I recall correctly, I believe she was a minor character in the first book. You're also doing a lot of world building because you're having to set up what's going on with the world or with the war. You're also setting up plotting. I can tell there's probably a lot of foreshadowing elements for things that are going to be coming up in the just in the story in general. So we've definitely got a lot going on with the story. I think I did feel connected to Jennifer. I think you can do a couple things in the beginning of the chapter to make it even a stronger connection with her, and to give us more tension. But I think you did a very good job with her character development. So I would say character development, world building are very strong. Plot is good. I like the plot. I think the dialogue is where you could continue to clean up. But let's get into that. Once again, this is an early draft, so we're not going to worry about grammar or too much wordiness. But I think overall, the chapter feels like it's in a pretty good place. I think what I would want, because I know right now the beginning focus of the chapter is on Jennifer giving orders. I almost want like little hints that she's might be a little unstable. Even if he ran next to her and said, even as she's like giving orders, like maybe she like has to like grab her hand like she's shaking or something like that, and she holds it behind her back like she's making a signal. She looks over her shoulder, like she sees something, but maybe she plays it off. I think you can do little things that nobody notices that creates tension. I think what you want is, I think in this very beginning, you want to create some type of tension to show that that she is worried about something outside of this thing. You did a really good job of setting this up, that this is like a real like battle, and making it think that like we're going in, she's fighting aliens. I think you could do it even more. I think you could add an additional context of like, are they about to go fight the skinnies? Are they about to go fight the aliens? Or are they about to go fight the Garda? I think you could add even more, like maybe frame it like one of the questions the soldiers asked. If she's like, we're not training here, go and do your thing, or something. I think you could do even more intentionality to make the reader assume that this is a real active fight scene instead of just a training exercise. So I would say build a little bit more tension. If you could do some more foreshadowing with Jennifer, because what you do with her at the end of the chapter is great. And then also give us a little bit more to make us think this is a real fight. It'll build up really good expectation, and then it will also make that rubber ducky moment even more impactful. Let's see. I think with this one, so essentially she's giving directions. I mean, you guys know me. You guys know whenever we have a lot of dialogue back to back, I would say if you can split up some of the dialogue with a little action. Even this one, like, yeah, because they're really kind of going back and forth. I would do things like squad 2, stack them on the 2 side of the building. She said, while hiding, her shaking, her quivering fist. Squad 3. Right, so I think little things like this. Give us little bits of action in between. Squad 3, I want you guys on the 4 side of the building. Squad, the squad 3 leader. Quenched a no, they wouldn't be smoking. The squad 3 leader. Bull bull cut, scar. Sometimes called Scarface. No, I don't know. I'm just like bull cut, nodded with a chuckle. Right, something like that. I think break up your dialogue with a little bit more action, so we can continue to get that visualization. This is just examples off the top of my head. You can do better. But overall, this is all good. And let her squad to the front. I like the action here. You know, and so then she heard radio clicks. And 3, yep. All right, and then this is when we know that it's a game. I might not even say that this is a game yet. I would let the rubber ducky be the realization that it's a game, because that rubber ducky moment is like beautiful. And I think you could do this rubber ducky moment a little better. Their ambush was perfect and they had easily won until something flew through the air and she caught in her hand a rubber ducky, right? So I think you can make that moment even stronger, until something flew in the air, and she caught it. A rubber ducky. Right? So I think make that moment stronger, because you're expecting like a grenade, you're expecting what the heck, a rubber ducky, and then you're like, oh, okay, this is, and then there's that ironic like chuckle. Oh, okay, this is training something. This is something. So I think make this more impactful, and I think that'll make this this moment even better. And then of course like, oh, okay, we got beat. We suck. She scowled when she saw the words. And this is what's funny. The quack bang bitch. I'm like, oh, okay, that's funny. They're giving her a hard time. Classy. Yeah, so I'd say I would do that, elevate that moment. And then we got this stuff with the squad commander. That's good. This is just doing character development and building up the tension for her character. Once again, you can continue to cut down on the dialogue, the wordiness of the dialogue when you get to a revision mode. And then we kind of get to the back end of the chapter with her and her family. This is good. And what's interesting is when we get to this moment and her not wanting to collapse, this is when I started caring about the character. I want to start trying to care about the character in the very beginning. So I think that's why we need a little bit more attention and things that lead us to think this in the beginning. But this is when we get the understanding of why she's struggling. Granted, anyone who knew the events of the first book clearly knows why she's struggling. But I think this is, I think we want to call out to it since we're focusing on her character. And this is good. I think this is really good. Setting up the where the war is at. What just make sure that when you're setting up where the current war is at, because this is all world building, make it its own paragraph so that way it stands out and it doesn't chance getting lost. Since the first half of this is really about her, and then this paragraph is really about kind of foreshadowing what's going on with the war front. And then we're going back to her family. This is all good foreshadowing. Let's see, she wants to see what the maternal father had forbidden it. Yeah. So this leads us to believe that probably her home world is probably going to be attacked, and something's going to happen. I might also reference like what I forgot what they called their machines, right? The Goliaths, right? I'm blanking on what they were called. Wouldn't she have a name for her machine as well? I think in the first book, the character gave his machine a name. I think I would have her refer to her machine by name as well, if that was the case. I forgot. And this is just transitioning at the end of it. She's just trying to get her mind off of it. I think the ending worked. I think this is a good ending. And this, once again, this is actually a good example of how to end a chapter on a downbeat, right? She doesn't. It's not ending on action. It's not ending on something crazy. But we've done a lot of character development and world building, and it's kind of like I'm kind of like feeling like anxious at this part of the chapter because I want to know what's going to happen, and I think that's good because I'm kind of being put into her shoes. So really, really great work on that, Calvin. Wonderful work. I know you just finished the overall draft for the manuscript. I hope this helps with the revisions, my friend. Good luck. All right, wonderful. What did y'all think of that? I was like, I feel like we got some good. We definitely got a good story there. Really, really good draft. Hopefully, that was able to help you out a little bit, Calvin. And of course, for anybody else who's wanting feedback, submit now. Submission is down in the YouTube chat down below. Oh man. So I always love the military sci-fi stuff. Let's see. Good evening. Hey, what's up, White Sarah? Welcome, my friend. And I finished my first draft. Woo! White Sarah, congratulations! White Sarah, I love it. I know you just finished the draft for your manuscript. Really, really great work. Now the fun part begins, the revision process. I was like, do a lot of writer. Okay, actually, I want to know this. If you're, most of you are writers, do you like revisions? If you are a writer, do you like revisions? Yes or no? I guess maybe I should just do this as a, probably just do this as a, as a poll. All right, I'll start a YouTube poll. Do you like revision? Do you like the revision process in developing your story? Perfect. Yes. All right, we'll do this as a YouTube poll. I'm actually kind of curious. I know I love the revision process. I'm curious if you guys do. All right, we starting that poll. Do you like the revision process with storytelling? Yes or no? Drop if you're on YouTube, I just did a poll. If you're not, just drop it. Let me know. I know we have some friends over here from Twitch. Hey, what's up? What? We did your story earlier. What 16? We did your story earlier, I believe. We did your story as like blinking was called. We did after the fall. I think it was the second story we did. What I would do is once the stream ends, go watch the replay on the YouTube channel. I'll send you an email sometime later with like the details, but go over to the Right Now YouTube channel, watch the replay, and let me know if the feedback helped you out. Because I did your story a little while earlier. Lmae, no, you do not like revisions. White's here, like, I'm not sure yet. Ask me in a few weeks. I feel like I'm that weirdo who likes revisions. Like, for me, like, because I'm such a gamer, for me, revisions is like, I'm trying to fix the problems of the story. I love trying to fix the problems. My, like, revision draft of Scarecrow is so much better than the first draft. I, like, fixed so many problems. And by the way, so let's see, what are we getting into next? Let's see. Next, we are getting into fan fiction. So, into everybody's favorite. We're going to be getting into a Harry Potter fan fiction next. All the better to eat you with by author Impossible Things. So we're going to be queuing up a Harry Potter fanfic. We'll be hopping into that one next. And by the way, I want to do a really quick call out. So I've been trying to think for Black Friday, for the holiday season, what type of discount I can offer the community. So I'm actually doing a holiday writing discount, 60% off. This is a huge discount. That's probably one of the biggest discounts that I've ever done for editing services, alpha reading services, and coaching. So if you are wanting feedback, if you're wanting help with your story, you should definitely check it out. Here's the web page. Oh, no, it's there. Here's the web page that kind of details. Nope, That's not what I want. There we go. So here's kind of the webpage that kind of details everything. So basically, I am doing a discounted services. So basically, I'm doing critique services. If you want to get critiques similar to what I do here on the Story and Critique stream, $25. You'll get a 30-minute video with a critique on your story that you submit. This is really cheap for alpha reading. Discounted coaching, which is usually much more pricey, where you can sign up for a coaching session, or editing, much cheaper than generally what you will get for professional editing services. So you can submit, you can sign up. I give you the web page here. Did I link it down in the YouTube description? Or might have forgotten. My bad. Let's see. For those of you who want to know more, here's the submission form. I'll drop it down in the chat for anybody who wants to know more, or go check it out. It's basically a sign-up form, and you can sign up for what you're interested in. So this is the holiday discount thing that I'm offering right now. Go check it up, sign up now. Basically, availability for like coaching, for editing, for doing the critiques is basically on a first come, first served basis. Once my schedule fills up, then I won't be able to do it anymore. So yeah, coaching, trying it out. We'll see if it people help. Yay, all my testimonials. I was like, I've worked with a lot of writers this past year, so I feel like I've done pretty good. Of course, there's a story. I was like, we don't need to read that right now. That's not too exciting. Cool. But yeah, that is what I got. So if you're needing help with writing stuff, go check it out. See if it'll help you. I'm always trying to help out writers, as this is my main job with doing the writing business. So, excellent. Let's see. So wanted to make sure I did a call out for the holiday discount stuff. And let's see. Give me just a second. All right, and then let's see. So let me queue up the next story as we go into some Harry Potter fan fiction. All right, and let's do it. So I got this one, All the Better to Eat You With. Oof. I was like, are we going to like Harry Potter, like thriller, like horror over here? I was like, how dark is this going to get? All right, so for those of you who are aware of the Harry Potter universe, let's see just what we have queued up. All right, and let's see what type of feedback they're looking for. Okay. All the Better to Eat You With. Harry Potter fan fiction by author Impossible Things. This is a first draft of a novella, and they're looking for any feedback. Chapter 1. The safe house was cold. Ron sat in front of a fireplace. The warmth did little to keep him warm. He sat on the floor in what used to be a kitchen, although it's lost all its charm. With peeling wallpaper and broken windows, it was one of the few places that weren't patrolled under the new regime. Somewhere, Ron and Hermione knew they would be safe. The broken windows were boarded up, and others covered by hasty, notice-me-not charms that flickered when a gust of wind came. It had been 3 years. 3 years since Voldemort won. 3 years since the Order had scattered, leaving Ron and Hermione as the only ones left. Hermione stood, looking over at a map. You'll take this route. Ron got up and walked over, peering at the same map. It was marked with different routes and paths to stay away from the patrols. The same patrols that took Bill away. Ron shook his head to get the image out of his mind. It'll take longer, but the patrols tend to stick to main roads. You'll have to cut through the forest, Hermione explained. Ron studied the map, committing it to memory. How long? Ron asked. 3 days if you're careful, 2 days if you're quick. I trust you'll be careful. Hermione then handed a pack that was on the table beside her to Ron. This has everything you need: suppressants, food, and an emergency port key. Ron took the pack. Hermione, don't worry, I'll be okay. Hermione nodded. Just stick to the paths and you'll be okay. But if you go into heat, out, I'll be fine, Hermione. Ron was already at the door. Hermione nodded with tears in her eyes. Good luck. Ron gave her a smile and nod before opening the door as he stepped into the bleak London night. The cold winter air greeted Ron when he stepped outside. Ron wrapped his red scarf tighter, a scarf that was hand-stitched by his mom, something that Ron cherished ever since he first got it. Ron continued on. He slipped through hallways to avoid most of the patrols. Right now, he couldn't afford to get caught, especially since Hermione was counting on him. When Ron reached the forest edge, he hesitated. Was he sure he wanted to do this? He could turn around and tell Hermione for a different plan. No, he wouldn't do that to her. She took so much time thinking about this, and how would she react if she found out? With a deep breath, Ron ventured into the forest. The forest was a cold and desolate place, a place Ron had no business being in, a place where an Omega shouldn't be alone. Despite the cold, Ron marched on, the snow crunching beneath his feet. The forest was dark, trees and white ground. The only light being from Ron's wand. Ron knew he was being watched. He could sense it before he caught the scent that was unmistakably alpha. No, Ron thought, not now. Ron knew he should be running, doing something other than standing there, but he couldn't. He froze and listened. A howl! Maybe from the wind. Maybe not. Ron used his wand to scan the tree lines, desperately trying to find something, or perhaps someone. When there was no one, Ron couldn't help but sigh with relief. But he smelt it again. This time it was closer. Wood smoke and iron. That was the scent. It was sharp and heaty. It made Ron's breath hitch. Ron knew he had to move. He knew he had to flee. Ron got back to his senses and continued on his way. Ron couldn't help but look over his shoulder the entire way. It was nauseating. The tension. He stopped dead in his tracks when he heard another set of footsteps. Then a voice. Are you lost, little one? Ron whipped around, pointing his wand at a tree where he could make a figure leaning against it. It was a man. He smiled, although it didn't quite reach his eyes. I'm not lost, Ron said. Or little. Right. The man stepped closer to Ron, who had his wand still pointing at him. Don't come any closer, Ron warned. The warning didn't seem to faze the man as he got closer. Too close. Close enough that Ron could take an intake of breath. His body shivered, but it wasn't from the cold. His lips parted as he took another breath of the man's scent. The man noticed and smiled. Now, why would the Weasleys' only Omega son be out tonight? You know there's a bounty. It'll be so easy for me to take it. The man reached out and pushed a strand of Ron's hair behind his ear. Ron flinched. Don't touch me! The man pulled his hand back and smiled. Of course not. He stepped back away from Ron. I'll leave you then. We will meet again, Little Red. The man left, leaving Ron standing there. Ron took deep breaths, desperate to smell the winter air, to clear his nose and mind of the man's scent. After a couple of breaths, Ron continued down the path. He didn't want to stay any longer, but he knew the man was still watching. The next morning came. Ron woke up and got up. He had found a hollow part of a tree to find shelter. It wasn't the best thing in the world, but his options were limited. Ron shivered as he continued on the path until he saw a chimney smoke. There was shelter nearby, but Ron knew he couldn't just walk over. It could be a trap set by the patrols. He knew the Death Eaters hunted muggles, witches, and wizards in the forest, especially if said witches or wizards are blood traitors. It was fun for them, a sport. And Ron knew that the man from last night had to be a Death Eater. But Ron was cold and exhausted. He knew if he didn't find shelter soon, he would die. So despite all his instincts, Ron made his decision. Ron followed the smoke all the way to a small cabin. The lights were on inside, and the door was left ajar. Ron knew how stupid this was. He should have just continued on, but his Omega instincts overrode all reason. The idea of shelter in someplace warm was too tempting. Ron walked up to the cabin and slipped inside. Perhaps he should have called out, but Ron was inside and shut the door behind him. Ron looked around the cabin and noticed it was somewhere bare. It had simple furniture, but that was about it. Ron had to admit at first. He thought it was abandoned. But why were the lights on if it was? Perhaps someone had left in a hurry, Ron thought. That's exactly what happened. Ron set his pack down on a wooden table. Before Ron could go into the kitchen area, he heard a voice. A sickly, familiar voice. Little Red, I didn't take you for someone who breaks into places. Ooh, that's a good cliffhanger. All right, reading and reading. All right, wow. So what a step into the world of wizarding and Hogwarts. Well, not Hogwarts in this section, but into the wizarding world of Harry Potter. Wow, in a world where I think Harry passed away. 3 years since Voldemort won, 3 years since the Order had scattered. Okay, no, Harry's still alive. He's just not in this chapter. Wow. So I actually like that we got it's a little Ron and Hermione bit. They're together. I mean, wait, did they get? Pretty sure they got married in the epilogue, and they had a family. Pretty sure they got married and had a family. I forgot. It's been so long since I've read that book. But I think that book was 20 years later, so this is 3 years after. So I think something. So first off, I loved it. I of course love Harry Potter, so I think this is really awesome. I think I like the back and forth, the concern with Ron and Hermione in the beginning. I think that was really cool. I want to know what happened to Harry Potter, and that's the same thing the reader's going to be asking on their mind. They're like, where's Harry Potter? I might make a reference to Harry of where he is. You referenced that you did a good job of setting up the time 3 years after the end of the events of the last book, essentially. But I think it'd be worthwhile to reference Harry because people are going to want to know where Harry is. And of course, Ron and Hermione. How come Harry Potter's not with them? He's probably living his best life now. Harry's living his best life 3 years later. Granted, I haven't read Cursed Child, so I don't know the events of Cursed Child. I don't know if that canon plays into these events or not. Let's see. So beyond that, I think Ron and Hermione. I'm assuming they're in a deep relationship, since they started their relationship in near the end of the Harry Potter series. So I think a little more intimacy. I think there should probably be more intimacy between Hermione and Ron in this chapter because I think they're in probably a deeper relationship, unless that's not the case in this fan fiction. So I think that'd be my recommendation: more intimacy between them. You do a good job of the fear and the caring, but I think a little more intimacy. Even if Ron's just like super clumsy, right? Even if he's just like sucks at it. But I think trying would actually be powerful, especially if they've been in a relationship now for 4 years. So that would something to think about. I think all of the actions though that they do work. I think it supports the characters. And I like that we're going on a Ron adventure. I kind of like that. Although I almost expect Ron to be a little bit more clumsy, because that's kind of his character. But I mean, granted, in the books, he's actually not as much of a goofball. He's more of a goofball in the movies. So I guess that's kind of debatable. But I do like this. And yeah, so I think we'll go into it. So I think the character development is strong. Once again, you're playing to the character types. Of course, world building is set. I like some of the world building elements you're adding with the fan fiction, and I think the plot that they're going with the stranger is really interesting. I want to know who the stranger is. You did a really good job with that part. So as I'm going into it, yeah, I touched on the intimacy. You did a really good job of setting up the timeline. 3 years. This was very clear. So that's good. And then, I mean, outside, you mentioned the Order, you mentioned Voldemort, and of course, you mentioned Bill. Yeah, I almost wonder if you should mention anybody else, but I think Harry is the only one that you really should mention as a side note. Even if he's not in this fan fiction, I think he should still be referenced. Let's see, Hermione, and then, of course, Harry is with Ginny, right? So obviously, like, they should probably both be referenced then. Let's see. So that's good. Good setup. You do a good with the back and forth. And I think this is good that she's tearing up. I just do think that there should be more physicality since they've been in a relationship for 3 years. They would be in a relationship in 3 years, they would have a very much rhythm and flow with their intimacy. Ron gave her a smile and nod. Let's see. Unless in this fan fiction they're not in a relationship and there's tension, then you should speak to the tension. If there is tension, speak to the tension. If there's no tension, then there's no tension. But once Ron goes into the patrol, this is good. He's wandering around. Um, I don't know what an omega is. If this is part of canon, if it's set up in a Cursed Child, then don't worry about it. But if this is a fan fiction based thing, I might clarify. I mean, you can foreshadow it here, but we need to know at some point what an omega means. With interiority, you don't need to put Ron thought. We already know that this is all in Ron's POV. Um, so I think you would do this. No, not now. Because we already know this whole thing is Ron's POV. Readers don't really want interiority tags like they used to. By the way, this is the correct way to use an M dash. I always like to point out when M dashes are used correctly. A howl, maybe from the wind. It couldn't work if we did this as a comma. A howl, maybe from the wind. It could work. I think the M dash does work. So it's basically an interrupt, a howl, and this is a thought interrupt, maybe from the wind. It works. I think this could also be a comma, but it does work. Maybe not. Ron uses one to scan the tree line with smoke. I really like the antagonist of this chapter. Whether or not he's actually antagonist or some type of character, but he's super creepy. And there's such like with this character, there's almost like uh, like it's like a creepy, almost like predatory. This character kind of comes across as a predator. The way that he's kind of touching Ron, like that's kind of creepy. So there's definitely a predatory type nature with this older character, which it sounds like that's your intention. So I think that was early, especially the fact that he's calling him Little Red. I'm like, yeah, that's creepy. But I think you did a good job of setting that tension up. And then I think the rest of this is pretty good. You're kind of just doing more world building. Awesome. And then you're kind of setting up Ron's beliefs that the guy was a Death Eater. And then, of course, going to a cabin where, of course, the cabin is owned by the creepy predator. This was a great cliffhanger. Absolutely great cliffhanger. I want to know more. I want to know more about who this creepy predator is. Is he a Death Eater? Is he someone else? Is he going to attack Ron? I don't know. How bad is this fan fiction going to get? All the better to eat you with. Oh yeah. Oh god. This is not a good predator for Ron. Ron's gonna need some help. Oh man. Yeah, so actually, especially if this guy is a predator and he's gonna eat it, I think it's all the more reason that you should highlight Ron and Hermione's relationship, which is pure and powerful because it's their love. I think it's definitely worth highlighting that, especially like they should kiss. Or have like a parting kiss or like holding each other, because I think that will show the strength of a powerful relationship as compared to this antagonist who's very much going to try to push and break boundaries because it sounds like he wants to eat him. So I think that'll show a stronger contrast. So oh, interesting, Dark Fable. So you said this is an old version of the story. This is not how it's written anymore. You said this is supposed to be a Little Red Riding Hood inspired story. Oh, that's right. That's right. Because you had mentioned Little Red Riding Hood and Harry Potter. Yeah, so this actually totally makes sense then with that inspired as a Little Red Riding Hood. parallel. That's really cool. That's actually really, really cool. Harry Potter meets Little Red Riding Hood. I actually totally see that. Then I think it's totally worth it to play into Ron and Hermione's interest. And like you said, this is an older version, so you've updated it some. But then clearly the stranger, which we're calling a Death Eater, is clearly the wolf, probably. But yeah, that's awesome. I want to keep reading. I think this is definitely very well written. So definitely very well written. Yeah, Dark Fable. What I would recommend is because I won't be able to go through another reading right now with this one. What I would recommend is go upload it and go submit it. Go upload it over to the Discord. I would say go upload over the Discord. We actually have a feedback section in the Discord. If I don't know if you're you're part of the Discord or not, I can drop the Discord link. Let's see, let me go. And I mean, I guess this is a good call out. So like anybody who wants to be like part of the Discord, our Discord community is actually super active. We have a really active Discord community. Whether you just want to chat with other writers, whether you want to procrastinate, play writing games, or get feedback for your story, everyone should come join the Discord. Our Discord is a really cool Discord for all styles of writers. But as I was telling you, Dark Fable, you should go under the feedback section and go upload your story. And you could just say like from the critique show, this is like the newer version, and you'll probably get feedback from some other writers in there. I would highly recommend that. Link is down in the YouTube description. It's also, I just dropped it in the chat for y'all, for anyone who's not part of the Discord already. So, yeah. But overall, though, that was a cool story. And you said you've revised it. So, very, very cool. Yeah, I would definitely recommend uploading that newer version because I'd be really curious to see what the community thinks of it as well. So, yeah. But thank you so much for submitting that, my friend. That was really, really cool. Really, really cool. Of course, always love Harry Potter. I think Harry Potter fan fictions are always really, really great. By the way, I did a poll earlier before we went into that story, and I asked the community, do you like the revision process in developing your story? 43% said yes, and 57% said no. Apparently y'all do not like revising your story that much. But revising the story is so much fun. That's when you fix the characters and you make the character stronger and you make the plot better and you make the world building tweaks. Revision's so much fun. So much fun. But for me, like revision is like a puzzle or a game. It's like I gotta level up that character beat so that way the character really sings. But I think we have an even more important poll to ask now that we're thinking about Harry Potter. What Harry Potter house are you? Let's see, Gryffindor, Slytherin, Hufflepuff, and Ravenclaw. All right, guys, this is the most important poll of the stream. If you're on YouTube, of course, right now the poll's on YouTube. What Harry Potter house are you? Vote now. I'm like, all right, what house is all of our fellow writers here in the Harry Potter community? Awesome. So once again, Dark Fable, thank you again so much for sending that over. And awesome. The next story we're going to be hopping into is Lmae's. So Lmae, we're going to be hopping into your updated story for Altered One. So I think Lmae's done a revision of a previous chapter, and they want to know if the revision, if it sounds impactful. So Lmae, we're going to be hopping into your story in just a second, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. Your Altered One is a really fun read so far. So we'll hop into Altered One in just a moment. And let's see, what did the chat think of Harry Potter? What did we get? Marta, you're like, there is no British accent. Yeah, as much as I love doing readings, I'm not very good at accents. If I hear the accent, I can mimic it immediately. But I feel like I'm taking a chance because I don't want to like try mimicking an accent and then be unintentionally offensive because I can't do accents that well. So that's why I don't really attempt accents. My axe. If I try and axe it like on the top of my head, it sounds like a jumbled like mess of like a video game character and a spoof. My bad. You're like the Omegaverse jump scare is wild. You say I'm not sure what that's referring to. You said Omegaverse. Okay, so Omegaverse fan fiction. It looks like it's like a subgenre of fan fiction, which is interesting. So, Omegaverse is a genre of fan fiction and original fiction, often romantic or erotic, where society is divided into a hierarchy of alphas, betas, and omegas. This ABO system, which originated in the early 2010s from supernatural fandoms, includes tropes like omegas going into heat, their ability to become pregnant regardless of biological sex. While most commonly found in fan fiction, the genre has also expanded into published novels. Oh, interesting. Yeah, it's because I don't read a lot of fan fiction. I'm not as familiar with the subgenres or genres, but that's fascinating. Wow, you're definitely doing a lot with this Harry Potter fan fiction. We got like Harry Potter, Little Red Riding Hood, and then Omegaverse. It sounds like that's super cool. That sounds like a really cool, really good challenge, actually. Yeah, Mess. I think they said this was set 3 years after the events of the last book. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it might be important to touch upon their age. That could be helpful. Because like I was like, what? How old were they at the end of Harry Potter? Late teens, like what? 17 through 19, I think. But I don't. I just don't remember their age. My guess is they were 17, 18, and 19 at the end of the Harry Potter series, which means that now they're in their early 20s. But that's just a guess. I'm not sure. So that could be it. Could be helpful to set up their age. All right. And let's see what we got. All right, and I did our Harry Potter poll. Once again, if you're on YouTube, go vote. Which Harry Potter house are you? All right, and I'm going to queue up our next story over here. We're going to be hopping into Lmae's story, Altered One. And by the way, if you're just hopping into the stream or you're watching on the replay, welcome. This is the Story and Critique Show, where I do live readings and live critiques for writers in the community. If you're wanting feedback on your story, submit now. It's linked down in the YouTube description. I've done well over, we're at 240 stories read. They're all cold readings and all cold live critiques, so I can keep it interesting for myself while helping the writers in the community. I accept all genres and all styles and all formats. So super cool. Great way to help out other writers. So definitely submit now. All right. And let's see, Lmae, you said you changed his name to Casimir. Okay, so it looks like you changed our protagonist's name. All right. Wonderful. And let's see what we see. All right, so I'm all set. All right, let's see what you're needing help with. Lmae. All right, so I am all ready. Okay. So without further ado, Altered One. The genre is fantasy by author Lmae. And let's see. So this is a revision. So this is a later draft of a novel. Let's see. So Lmae rewrote chapter 1 after the feedback. They want to know if it's a more compelling hook and if the tone is good. Okay. So last time the criticism we gave you was that the tone was too light and too sarcastic. This is a darker version, and you want to it sounds like you want to know if it has that like darker tone, and if the darker tone is effective. All right, perfect. That's great. That's very good to know. So we're going to focus on tone and pacing. All right, perfect. And this is chapter 1. So let's see what we see. Yeah, I am a Ravenclaw. You're right. Ravenclaws are the best. All right, and I'll show the Harry Potter poll after this reading. Okay, let's do it. Altered One by May. Chapter 1, The Emperor's Eyes. Quigley, I'm preparing the antidote. Hold on, Casimir ordered the dark-haired teen dying on dew-touched grass. Swiftly, he broke the glass ampoule with one flick of his finger, snatched the needle he prepared by his side, and drew the antidote. The ivory rays from the half-moon touched the boy's face, leaving a sheen that resembled the flesh of canned cod fish. Casimir's mind raced from adrenaline and the sorry side of the boy. He's fading fast, and yet he was flinging light arrows into trees a few hours ago. His lower abdomen is growing by the second. It's the size of a pumpkin now. I fear his aether heart is failing from being overwhelmed by aether. Its beat is all over the place. I pray he won't drain the rest. His gaze darted to the empty glass bottle that rested inches away from Quigley's hand. Not a drop of liquid is left, and his master is nowhere in sight. Blast it! Why did you have to be so trusting? You're going to feel a pinch, but it will pass. Casimir pushed air out of the needle and drove it into the meatiest part of Quigley's scrawny right arm. It's a good thing that I don't need to find a vein for this. His attention shifted to Quigley's face. It remained twisted in the same way that he found him, deathly pale with a mouth agape, drawing in and out futile, shallow breaths. I've seen worse. The antidote should be working shortly. Casimir peered through Quigley's horn-rimmed glasses into his glossy brown eyes, and dread ate at his mind. A few minutes ago, Casimir witnessed Quigley's eyes welled up with tears. His pinpoint-sized pupils trembled in place. They pleaded with Casimir to save his life. But now the fear and pain etched onto them. But now the fear and pain etched onto them, has since faded, and was replaced with a distant stare. Quigley's breath faltered. Don't give up, Quigley, Casimir started, chest compressions. Your family is waiting for you, and remember, you have all your friends at the academy. Quigley's sweat-drenched, white-collared shirt felt cold to the touch, and yet not a shiver came from him. 1, 2, come on! Casimir continued, with every push, he refused to let the harsh truth win in his mind. Blast it! He looked at Quigley's face again, the light in his eyes dimmed. No! I failed again. A twig snapped due north of the tree line surrounding the glade, put Casimir on guard. After a hesitant glance at the poor boy, he left Quigley's side to investigate. As he drew near, Casimir experienced an odd sensation crawling on his face, like that of a millipede with legs made from toothpicks. On his pain scale, it barely registered as a 1, but alarm bells still rang in his mind. Blast it! There's an unnatural surge of aether in the air. The blighter is here. Casimir scanned over the grassy clearing, and he spied a faint purple glow, hovering above a dried bush between 2 golden poplar trees. The bastard is weaving a darkness pattern. Not on my watch! He pressed the trigger mechanism hidden underneath his sleeves, and fired 3 needles across the clearing, towards the purple light. The bush rustled, and Casimir caught the glimpse of a hooded figure darting behind a nearby tree. Whoa, now you almost took my eye out, called out a smooth voice. You're the most trigger-happy bill collector I ran into, and I don't know that much. So the master returns. This has gone beyond overdue Weaver licensing fees. By order of the Emperor and by my authority as an inquisitor, you are under arrest for manslaughter, child endangerment, and for distributing consumables without a license. Hands out where I can see them, Jet. Casimir inched forward with his right hand, resting on the trigger of his needle launcher. So, an aetherless whelp like you can arrest me? No. Do you realize how embarrassing that would be for me? Jet laughed. Casimir's silver hair began to stand on end as aether prickled his skin with greater intensity. All of his pores, including the ones under the aether-resistant padding of his uniform, burned, as if hot safety pins were lodged into them. His Spain scale jumped to a 4. Drat! He is gathering enough aether to drop a man, and the air pressure is rising. He is about to perform a wind pattern, but which one? Casimir kept his gaze on the tree Jet was hiding behind. Don't make this harder on yourself. Attacking an Inquisitor is guaranteed execution. I'll take my chances. The air around Jet's hiding spot picked up and cracked with a loud boom. Then a raging gale, consisting of wind and aether, spawned from Jet's position and ripped through the golden leaves of the underbrush with a wailing howl. So, it is a wind step, possibly paired with the physical enhancement pattern. Casimir reached for a billiard-sized capsule in his pocket. In his black vest pocket. The roaring tempest raced toward Casimir, tearing up the terrain and kicking up the soil within its wake. Casimir threw the capsule in front of him, shattering it on the ground and releasing an opaque cloud of black powder that concealed his movements. Afterwards, he leaped out of the gale's path, narrowly evading it. The aether from the passing attack knocked Casimir onto his side. He recovered with a roll and spun around to the direction of where the violent gust struck around. There, Casimir witnessed his assailant, skidding to a stop. His stunning emerald cloak, embroidered with golden spiders, undulated in the wind. Jet raised his foot and checked it as if stepping on a bug. A miss? How? Taking advantage of his opponent's confusion, Casimir fired a set of needles at Jet's back, but the man spun on his heels and deflected them with his cloak. Damn, Inquis, even the weak ones are annoying, Jet hissed while shielding his body with the hem of his cloak. When Jet lowered his hand, Casimir finally got a good look at his face. He appeared to be a few years Casimir's senior, possibly in his mid-20s, and had a suave face and pert smile that could swindle an old heiress out of her money. However, it was the shorter length, dark brown hair that caught Casimir's eye. A common-born weaver? But he murdered. Anger flared up within Casimir, and blood rushed to his face. Tisk! You should have been dead regardless, Jet said, emitting a thread of glowing purple aether and drawing a pentagon in the air. Casimir scrutinized Jet's hand as he swiftly interlocked another pentagon, creating the beginnings of a symmetrical pattern. He's going to thread an umbra shield. Can't let that happen. Jet continued, How unlucky being born with passable aether resistance and not in. Casimir chucked another smoke bomb at Jet, interrupting his pattern and forcing him to shield himself with his cape. Damn it! With Jet's vision obscured, Casimir broke into a full sprint and circled behind him. He felt another surge of aether from Jet, then heard several loud blasts. Those were probably umbra bolts. I should end this quickly. Casimir grabbed Jet from behind the waist and fell back with him, lifting him up off his feet and slamming Jet's back to the ground with a thud. Finally, Casimir ends the battle by quickly cuffing him before he could let out a yelp. All this time, I thought you were noble, exploiting commoner upstarts, but you are just a self-made weaver, pulling up the ladder from behind you. Casimir scoffed while fishing around Jet's pockets. Disgraceful. Humph, says the mind rattler who can't wield a lick of aether, Jet sneered. Inquis, Casimir muttered. When his hand curled around a glass cylindrical bottle, he pulled it out from Jet's pocket and studied its contents. It appears to be identical to the one Quigley was holding, but he won't be able to determine if it is a clear match until Nicola analyzes it. Casimir returned to Quigley and knelt beside him while the boy's lifeless eyes stared back at him. I'm sorry I was not able to save you in time, but hopefully this ends here with you. He gently closed Quigley's eyes with his hand and sat in silence. Just when Casimir had time to reflect, heavy footsteps trampling over fallen leaves alerted him to another presence approaching from the woods. Casimir rose to his feet and turned to face the tree line to the east. An imposing middle-aged man in a black trench coat emerged from the shadows of the trees. His statue was built like a monolith, topped with slick-back hair, and a glorious mustache occupied the majority of his face. Casimir waved. Uncle Iker? Iker's cold dark eyes observed the torn-up landscape. I see you successfully caught the suspect. Yes, but the boy. Casimir shook his head. Iker's hard, chiseled features softened when he saw what remained of Quigley. At least we'll be able to give the boy's family some closure. Unfortunately, the other families will still have to wait. There was no sign of the missing students in his hideout, Casimir asked. Iker's stoic face ceased into a scowl when his gaze fell on Jet. I only found one. His aether heart was missing. Casimir's visage darkened as he rubbed his square chin. I remember Sully telling me about a case. involving a master making pills from his apprentices. Aether hearts. Could this be it? It is possible. Once Sully gets a hold of him, we'll find out soon enough. End chapter. Wow, Lmae. So first off, I have to say, you did a really, really great job with that chapter. I feel like I clearly understood what was going on from the very beginning to the very end of it. Really, really great job. This is such a huge improvement over the last chapter. I feel like we had technically 3.5 since the Quigley was dead, but no, he was kind of alive in the beginning. So yeah, we technically had 4 characters in that chapter. But I think you did a really great job with all 4 of the characters. All 4 of them felt like they had distinct personalities. Quigley not so much, but that's not important since his character dies. His character is more there to be a inciting incident in a sense. But yeah, so we get Inquis. What was Casimir? Casimir is a great name. I like Casimir. I think Casimir works. And then we get Jet, and then Iker. All 3 of them great personalities. I think you did a really, really great job setting up. And then to answer your question, I think you did nail the tone of it. This was definitely comes across as some type of dark fantasy. Let's see, because really the character dies in the first chapter. I think if you want to play even more into the darkness, the dark side of it, you make his death a little more gruesome if you want to play more into that dark element. I know we have a torture scene coming up, so it'll be kind of obvious, but I think you could fine tune and tune up the darkness of the death if you really want to play into that dark side of it. But overall, this definitely is very clear that it was fantasy. Dark comedy. I think the comedic aspects were all coming from Jet. Or not dark comedy, dark fantasy. But yeah, I would say definitely really, really great work on that bit. But yeah, I didn't feel like the tone was light or sarcastic at all. Yeah, and I definitely think this was extremely compelling. I would definitely keep reading. I think in the last revision, I think I was like kind of interested by it, but I think in this revision, I would like definitely keep reading. This is a really great start to the story. So let's hop into it. You're basically starting off with him trying to save the character. You're doing a really great job with setting up Casimir trying to save this character, thinking that he could save him. I think one of the things that is holding just your writing back in this section is actually going to be a little bit more into your style. I think you're relying a little too heavily on the interiority. I do like the interiority, so I'm not saying don't get rid of the interiority. I think the interiority works, but I think you're relying on it a little too heavily. Each of your interiority sections, I might minimize because right now in the first couple pages, I would say I felt like you were telling me a little bit too much with the interiority and let me just experience the battle. I feel like the interiority does a lot of telling, and it isn't always necessary in the first couple times, but sometimes it's really effective. So let's see. So even in this first one, he's phasing past and he was flinging light arrows into trees a few hours ago. Ozlar is growing by the second. It's the size of a pumpkin now. I fear his Aether heart is failing from being overwhelmed by Aether. Its beat is all over the place. So basically we have 4 things. We have 4 thoughts that are kind of doing the same thing, but it's like, what is the information? At 5 thoughts. So we have 5 thoughts that's doing the same thing. Let's see. Dark hair, souffle, scratch the needle. Do we know that he's dying? Okay, so we don't quite know that he's dying yet until this thing. He's fading fast, and yet he was flinging light arrows into trees a few hours ago. We don't need the abdomen bit. I think instead of making this interiority, I would rather just describe like what his abdomen is blowing up, right? So I think that would be better than interiority. And I almost wonder, because you're telling us the Aether heart, which this is important. I'm wondering if the reader needs to know this immediately. I would almost say focus on the boy's death and let's save the Aether heart for a little later. but this is really interesting. This is almost like a hook. I'm like, oh, what is an Aether heart? But I'm just asking myself if it's important here or not. And then this is repetitive. We've already established that he's fading. So I would do one or the other. And I think these could be combined into a single sentence, so it's a little less repetitive. But the action that you're using and the dialogue works very well. So this is good. And then like sometimes like it's a good thing that I don't need to find a vein for this. Like this is funny. And I think this is kind of like a comedic element. So I actually like this. I'm like, okay, cool. And I think when you balance it with things like this is a single sentence. And I almost think that like you could do this as its own standalone beat, but I think this does work for me personally. Right. And it's like we don't even need like the focus on the death before because you're describing it right now. I've seen the worst. This was just me being an editor. This paragraph was a little confusing, and this is just needs to be reworded. A few minutes ago, Casimir witnessed Quigley's eyes welled up with tears. His pinpoint-sized pupils trembled in place as they pleaded with Casimir to save his life. Based off the framing of this sentence, his pinpoint-sized pupils trembled in place as they pleaded with Casimir to save his life. So his pupils are pleading. I mean, no, what you're saying is that Quigley is pleading with Casimir to save his life. But based off the framing of this sentence, his pupils are pleading with Casimir to save his life. It just, the way it's worded, just reword it. That's all. Just reword this paragraph. Basically, the point of this is that he found him a few minutes ago. He's crying and he feels like he's afraid he's going to die. It's good. I think the paragraph is important. Just reword it, is all I'm saying. Let's see. Don't give up, Quigley. This is really good. This is good stuff here. Quigley sweat drenched. Yep. And once again, I don't think we need the interiority here. I mean, okay, one or the other. I would say pick a lane with this beat when he dies, either interiority or dialogue. One or the other. I almost feel like that the interiority should be like, I failed again. I feel like this should be the interiority, and then this thing right here could be cut. Like I would say cut this, and then do that. This, I think that interiority like that would work. And then we get to this battle. My favorite character in this chapter is Jet. Hands down, my favorite character in this chapter is Jet because you do such a good job of making him the kind of the quirky bad guy. Jet is my favorite character so far. I like Quigley I like Casimir as a protagonist. Casimir is kind of like more like stern, direct. Like Casimir is a good protagonist, but Jet is my favorite character because he's quirky. And then I kind of like that you use his interiority to kind of as like battle tactics to kind of give the reader an idea of what the opponent is doing. I do think it works here. But once again, don't overdo it. I would say when you do interiority, like one sentence at a time. So that way it doesn't pull from the action. You want the reader to be very focused on the action, not on what's going up in the head, because this is an action scene that we're hopping into. Right? So it's like even here, we don't need not on my watch. The bastard is weaving a darkness pattern. And then I think you could do this, right? And then I think this is strong enough. This is good. All the actions you have between them are great. The dialogue is great. Love the dialogue between them. And I think what you can't. So my recommendation with the interiority during the fight scene is make them fragmented thoughts. Because right now, like two sentences, this pulls me out. This could pull us out of the action. Make this enough either to drop a man air pressure. Like something like that. I would do fragmented thoughts, keep them short, keep them sweet, because we want to focus on the action, not on the interiority. Simply because this is an action sequence. If this was not an action sequence, we could do more interiority, but specifically for that reason, we want to focus on the movements. This is really good in terms of like the dialogue and the things that the characters are doing. Beautiful. Keep it as is. Really, really great work. I love the powers that each of them are doing. It feels like we have a really good counter between the two. I'm very clear on who's attacking who. I think that you did a good job. The Inquis bit, I would preface this with Jet said, because I don't know who you haven't set up who I know Inquis is the protagonist. I know Inquis is Casimir to set that up, but since we don't, I would just say Jet said, just so the reader's clear. This is good. We finally get to look at what Jet looks like. Good work. Like even like this bit right here, like you could go Umbra bolts, better, and this Umbra bolts, better, and this quickly, right? Like something like that. I think things like that can make the interiority stronger. Casimir ends the battle. And I think make the end of this battle a little bit more impactful. Casimir slammed the handcuffs onto Jet. Finally, Casimir ends the battle by quickly cuffing him before it could let out a yelp. Casimir Jet's back to the ground. Casimir slammed handcuffs on Jet's wrists, keeping him to the ground. I think you could just word this ending a little better. Right, and then you can go back to a little more interiority since the fight scene has ended. The Quigley bit is good. This is really, really good. We have that final moment with Quigley. He gently closed Quigley's eyes with his hand and sat in silence. Then I think this is the moment you could play into the Aether bit. Like, okay, I wonder if he used his Aether heart or something, whatever that reference was. This would be the moment to do it now, since we're about to go into that bit with Iker. And then the end of the chapter is really just plotting setup for the next chapter or for the story. So, yeah, once it's possible, once Sully gets a hold of him, we'll find out soon enough. Yeah, so I think overall the chapter works. Really, really great work, my friend. This chapter is really strong. I would say the chapter is almost probably ready for editing. I think you can continue to make some slight like revision tweaks of everything that I shared, but I think the chapter is definitely in a much closer place for to be edited. So really, really great work. This is a much stronger starting place. I like that you're starting the chapter with him trying to save a character. Technically, this is a save the cat moment, so you did a really good job on that. And I think like I said, making Quigley's death even more profound and impactful will make the reader care more for Casimir. So yeah, great work. Really, really great work, Lmae. I had a really great time reading that. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how your revisions and how the story continues to shape up. So excellent work, my friend. Thank you again for submitting, and definitely looking forward to seeing some future excerpts and revisions and pieces as we continue into the world of Altered One. So excellent work. Awesome. So really, really great stuff. And I could tell, let's see, I need to cut it down. Yeah, that's funny, my bad. It reminded me of Owl House. Owl House is a good little animated show. I liked it. Owl House was fun. Let's see, as a side note, where did our Harry Potter vote? Looks like we were even, Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw. Oh, man, that's funny. Thank you for the feedback. We'll fix it. Awesome. Great work, my friend. And then, so really, really great work. And where can I expect my story to be read if I submitted it today? Awesome. So really great call out, Marta. So on that note, I'm going to wrap up the readings for today. Because I feel like we've gone in through a good deal of stories. For those of you who submitted your story, I probably won't be able to get to it today, whether you just submitted or whether your story's still in the queue. But we will queue it up for the next story and critique stream on Saturday. The Saturday after next. So it'll be Saturday, December 13th. So make sure to come back and join us Saturday, December 13th for the next story and critique show. And if you haven't submitted yet, submit now. It improves your odds of getting read on the next critique show. Usually, sometimes writers wait until the last moment. Submit sooner rather than later. So next week is cool. So Marta, it'll be the weekend after next. So awesome. But definitely, and once again, I'll send everyone emails once it gets closer. I'll send everyone emails once it gets closer as a reminder. So, but everyone, thank you so much for submitting today. I always love the critique show. Hopefully you're able to enjoy the stories. As always, such a great time being able to do the live readings, the live critiques, and everything else. I'll be back tomorrow for another daily writing stream as I'm continuing on into the third draft of The Last Scarecrow. And let me tell you, the chapters are going. Scarecrow's in such a readable state with the parts that I'm going over. So good. So continue to join us. We've got a lot of writing sprints coming up. And then for those of you who haven't checked out, the WriteNow A Thon is right around the corner. The WriteNow A Thon is our next major holiday writing celebration. If you want to host an event and be part of our community celebration, come join us. Come be part of the fun. Whether you want to host a brainstorming session, a writing game, a writing sprint, a workshop, a panel, or something else, come join us at the WriteNow A Thon. We have 2 more weeks left for submissions. Or for sign-ups if you want to host an activity. All of the information description is down in the YouTube description down below. So make sure to come join us, sign up to be involved in the WriteNow A Thon, an end-of-year celebration to celebrate our journey as writers. All right, my friends, that's all that I got for you. And most importantly, before you hop out, if you like this stream, tap that like button. Help us show the algorithm that writing streams are cool. All right, my friends, thank you for joining. But unfortunately, that brings us to the end of the stream. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers. Stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers. It's time to write
now. Sorry.
Right now, not right now, but right now. Read now, right now.